Hey guys, it's Noah here. So before we get into our episode today, I just wanted to announce that we are having a back to school giveaway in spirit of this episode and people going back to school. We know times are tough, so we want to make your time going back to school that much better, or even if you're not going back to school. So as always, it's going to be an iTunes review giveaway. So we will pick one lucky winner that reviews us on iTunes and Apple Podcasts to get the comics that are mentioned in today's episode. We'll, of course, post this everywhere else. That way it's easy for you to find. So head on over, give us a review. Even if you've given us a review already, you can still enter. You can review us more than once. All right. Well, good luck.
The following episode contains or may contain spoilers. So if you're spoiler sensitive, maybe beware.
Yeah, you sensitive people.
Get out.
No, get in. All right, welcome to the Phantom Zone, 3 fans, 1 podcast, and a sea of comics. I'm Noah.
Kayla.
Jared.
Yeah, and today we have a very special Patreon member fan pick episode, courtesy of Austin. So thank you very much, Austin, for donating to Patreon and being able to pick an episode that we normally probably wouldn't do.
That's a good idea, though. I really dig it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when we got this one, I was like, oh, I never thought about that. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about super schools, super academics. That's it. I mean, that's the whole episode. That's it. We're done.
Mm-hmm. That's all it is. It's a super fun idea.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go ahead and break the ice, because what I was going to say is I don't think we would have done this topic because we would have done a topic that it's kind of like a subgenre of. I think, like, I'm glad to do this. I'm just saying, like, we probably would have picked, because I think this is sort of just a subgenre of like young teens. You know what I mean? Really popular too. But it's like, I mean, honestly, it would have been harder to talk about, and it's good that we're breaking it down, because there are probably like 20 or 30 of those in the history of like major superhero comics.
And the longevity of them isn't necessarily great. Like they pop up and then they go away, pop up, go away, or they just kind of exist in the background. But like it's weird because there'll be some students that go to that school but are in their own comics and never mention going to that school. It's a secret within the own community.
But before we really get into it, I actually kind of wanted to ask you, do you guys like this particularly? Like, I know you don't dislike it. That would have come out already. But like, are you attracted to this kind of story?
Yes.
Hell yeah.
But less so the older I get.
that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like more school focused or setting based stories in books rather than comics. So there hasn't been one that really just, I don't know, captures me or makes me want to like, oh, I got to read the next issue, except for the one that I'm going to spotlight because there's only one issue and I want more.
I'm super into the genre, actually. I kind of always have been, I think. And even because the other thing I would suggest about this is that it's sort of like, it's really just like a coming of age story, right? The way to do the coming of age story through like the superhero sort of genre. And I've always just like, coming of age stories, because I feel like it's always sort of about like really heavy choices that it's not clear the person is like equipped or the people are equipped to make. You know, like it's not, you're like the people aren't just deciding like what they're going to do, but they're deciding like who they're going to be and what their future is going to be like. And so, even it's like the stakes are emotionally high, even when it's just like, are you going to graduate? Will you graduate?
That's a good point. It goes beyond punching the bad guy. It really is, because it's such a vulnerable time for people in general, your terrifying teenage years. That the stories are more reflective and more shaping the type of person they're going to be, which is something that is a benefit and a credit and something I really like in all stories. So,
with the added danger of possibly dying. So,
plus they have powers.
It's literally these schools are literally a pass or die grading system. So like, you just pass, but the only way you'll fail is if you die. I mean, there is something, I guess, really cool about, super schools, because we've all been to high school. You go there for like 7+ hours a day, depending on if you have extracurricular bullshit. And then you get home and you do more work. And that's not fun. And most of the time they teach you shit you will never use. I've never had to use most of the stuff that I learned in most math classes in high school.
I love school, so stop shitting on it. Exposure to different subjects is how you become a more well-rounded person and find your passion.
Right.
So Kayla's a robot.
Kayla's a lot like me, where you took Texas history in high school. Did we need an entire year of Texas government, Texas history?
Definitely not, but that's Texas's problem.
Oh, I know, but that's like
states don't do that.
No, right, and that's my broader point.
No, they do. They do that. Wait, you did it in high school?
Yeah.
What year?
Is it sophomore year?
Sophomore year, I took world history.
I think I did too. Was it freshman year then, or was that just geography?
Freshman year was world geography. Why are we talking about this?
because we're talking about our super high school experience.
But like, I think there's just something cool with super schools. You go there for 7 hours, learn how to do your super ability, hone that skill.
You can meet Charles Xavier.
If you're a mutant, and then, but ultimately you get to learn with great power comes great responsibility.
That's Spider-Man. Anyway,
yeah, I mean, it is cool though too for the reading them in comics specifically, that they like to hone in on different like niches or different types of schools. So it's usually pretty cool to see that type of thing. So more to your point, like the whole fantasy element of it, like you have Xavier's mansion where he takes all the mutants, and there's schools that just look for the smartest geniuses out there, or ones that nab people that are either abandoned or lost or forgotten.
There's the schools where it's like you go because you have a special ability, or there are the schools where people steal you, and make you do it.
No, like Batman.
Yeah, exactly. No, but to your point, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we really do have to cover it. We sort of like flirted with it. Is the sort of paradigmatic example of this is Xavier's, what is it? It's always got a silly name, like Xavier's Gifted Institute for Special Youngsters or something like that.
I think isn't it Xavier's School for Unique and Gifted?
Or I think Gifted Youngsters was the first one. Xavier's School.
Oh yeah.
My God. He tried to get hip with the times.
They've changed it a lot, and we'll kind of mention that. We'll get into that a bit too. But this was like, I mean, it came out in the 60s, and you have the 5-bit original X-Men. It's like basically a ripoff of Doom Patrol a little bit. But the original thing is it's happening in a school. Really, it's like you have 5 students. Is it a school, or is this just like a get together? But
at that point, it's just a group home.
Kind of like Umbrella Academy.
Yeah. But the thing you mentioned too is that it's true. There's like, you go to this school, like, and the promise is like mutant powers in the X-Men mythos are supposed to be kind of really unstable, and you don't know like how to use them when you're a kid. They just sort of they flare up like puberty, like acne, and you have to deal with them. And then the idea is Professor X is supposed to teach you how to use the powers. But the thing is that what if your powers what if your powers are just like, you just have them, like somebody just like explodes, like, how are you gonna explode better? You know what I mean? Like I never understood that part.
It's like the whole story arc of the first season of Heroes, like tried to get Peter to not explode.
Yeah. That's true.
It can work. I mean, I don't know. It sucks for that one.
With like Cyclops, it's just like, open your eyes really wide, really wide.
just squint it a little bit to be more precise.
I feel like a lot of the helping you control the powers ends up going towards more of the emotional side. You know how we just did the story deep dive and how her powers are tied very strongly to her emotions, and that's when it can become a little dangerous, a little unstable. And I feel like because these are freaking teenagers that are already having hormonal issues, and then they're trying to use their powers that are tied to their emotions. I feel like the control goes beyond like, okay, I know you can shoot lasers with your eyes, just look in that direction. I think it's
Stop looking around.
It's more of a mental help them come to terms with who they are and that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm. I always find it funny with that stuff too, especially with Professor X, because it has moments where it's like, oh, this is a school. Like, I forgot that these people that are on the superhero team are usually like the geometry teacher as well. But it's just funny that sometimes they'll go back and forth between the two. And you're like, oh, he's kind of just grooming all of these mutants to see which team is the best team. There's some kind of thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think you guys are right too, that there's something like being in high school that you're already like emotionally ill-equipped just to deal with adulthood, and then you're adding on top of that like this insane power. So there's like a weird Spider-Man-y kind of thing inside it, which is a great power. You got to learn to deal with it. And
I love that Uncle Ben was able to summarize all 4 years of Xavier's school in one sentence.
Yeah.
And I think it's also cool. So just as another example of like different types of schools. So one that I don't feel gets enough attention or people realize is technically a school / academy or whatever you want to call it is the Legion Academy. So that's from the 30th century.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, that's where, it functions in a way like the X-Men does. So people go there to essentially learn how to hone their powers, work as a team, whatever. It's like a career school kind of, but you don't have to necessarily join the Legion after you graduate. So it's just a way for you to become a super badass powered human or alien or whatever. And then they're just like, okay, bye.
I'm glad you said that, career school. That's a good term here, because like in a lot of ways, these are like technical schools.
Yeah,
like,
where you're learning a trade.
They have like a bad name, but it's like, what do you learn to do? Well, I'm learning golf course management. Well, what do you, like repairing the damage between mutant and humankind. That is what I am majoring in. A lot of this is just kind of like a story vehicle. You know what I mean? Because talking about it before, there's like a lot of, it's just like the conceit here is let's have a bunch of young people fighting crime or being superheroes, right? But like a lot of times, like it's like, well, they have to have an occasion to come together. So Teen Titans was a good example. It's not in our genre, but it's a good example. It's like, okay, they're all sidekicks, so they're going to come together and form a group of sidekicks. So, but in this case, I think it's cool because it's like, okay, what are they going to be doing when somebody's not attacking? Like when, I don't know, like Apocalypse's 4 horsemen aren't coming down and trying to kill everybody. What are they doing? Well, they're going to class, or they're like or they're figuring something out like in the school. So I think this is also a good vehicle to just move the story forward and stuff.
Or if you watch the animated show, eat pizza and play video games 24/7.
They were living the life.
I'm glad you mentioned that too, because the other thing I thought about is that like this is a pretty popular, and like I don't know if it's just because it's popular because of fans, or if it's popular because, like I said, the writers, like this gives them a way to move stuff. Young Justice, I kind of forgot at first that that's kind of what it is too. Like it's not a school exactly, but it's definitely like the idea that they're all they're like in a training camp or something like that.
Yeah, in the show, that's definitely how it functions.
That's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah, because in the comic, it's just like another team ensemble. But yeah, in the show, it definitely functioned that way. That was a really cool idea to have Black Canary come in and teach them combat, and then various other specialties in certain fields would come and teach them. So it made a cool balance between seeing them try to be like the big heroes themselves. So that's a pretty good one. I've always liked the Future Foundation, just to point out, only because
fucking
like
nerd.
But the conceit of it is funny because so Reed Richards founded it, Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, and he's like, I want all of the most genius, nerdy ass people to just come and just think about shit.
That sounds like him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I want to be around my people. Like, let me get all of these people and bring them here. But then it's also funny too, because he'll weaponize them kind of in the same vein as Xavier does with the X-Men. But it's more, I would say more or less functions as like a think tank than anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. And honestly, there's always this part with the Xavier like Institute that's been kind of, I don't know, irresponsible and sort of fucked up. And in more recent stories, that's been fleshed out. Like they had this story, Schism, where Wolverine and Scott Summers, Cyclops, were like sort of fighting over like, what is this school even supposed to be? So for Wolverine, surprisingly, is like, oh, it's supposed to be a place to nurture, people and not turn them into assassins, whatever. And then Scott is on a very militant kick. And it's like, we got to prepare him for war or whatever. So there has always been this kind of weird things like, why is Xavier like turning these like kids, like he's preparing them to be in a strike force or something like that? That's always a bit like weird.
Yeah, like the normal PE at the X Mansion is just throwing him into the danger room at level 10. Have fun.
Cardio.
There's a new kid in class, and it's like, what are we gonna do? It's like, we're gonna do dodgeball. It's like, that's easy. Well, we use knives. No, it's gonna be
as a fun little thing that I found when I was doing research, because there are a lot of schools. There's a lot of Academies schools, or whatever. There's one. So the golden books, those little kid books with the golden spine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
remember those?
Oh yeah, that's very
yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So they actually made a Tiny Titans Sidekick Elementary book line. And just listen to this. So this is from what the point of the book is. So not only will you see every DC character little and cute, so they look like little tiny cute things, but the funniest thing is the teachers. So the PE coach is Lobo, the principal is Deathstroke is the principal, and then the lunch lady is Darkseid.
You said these are children's books.
That's great.
But it just functions as a kid's story, but it's just funny that they made an elementary school with tiny little heroes, but the staff is all villains. So
we also haven't seen that yet, which I don't even know if it could work. You'd think if Pet Avengers could work, an elementary school superheroes could work. Because you're also, I don't know, maybe it's just they would be too rambunctious to have conventional motivation. It's like, why is this character, I don't know, baby Hawkeye doing something? It's like, because he really wants some crayons or whatever. I don't know. Maybe you couldn't do it.
I think that's an adorable idea.
Oh yeah. You could do a kid's book for sure. You could definitely do a pop-up book or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
so true.
I also wanted to mention, I think it's kind of cool too that because usually the way it works is not always, but usually with these school sort of superhero stuff, they have instructors, and the instructors are classic heroes that we are already familiar with and we're fans of. And then we get to see those characters take on a role that they might not before. So some superheroes like Batman, known for mentorship, you kind of always have a sense of him. But if you're I don't know if you're from the Avengers or whatever, and you get to see Vision, maybe you've never seen him be in a kind of more professorial role. And I think that's pretty cool too. Kind of a story for not just the kids.
He's totally just running the AV club.
Oh yeah. He's just a power source. They just plug it.
No.
He's nice about it. You're like, hey, Vision.
Thank you, Vision.
He has more to offer than battery power.
You plug it in and it opens his mouth, and that's the projector. It shoots out of his mouth.
But so we can't forget the crazy ass Academies. I like how they'll throw Academies on terrible organizations to make them seem, I guess,
not
scholarly
terrible.
or they're doing. Yeah, not terrible. So we have the Red Room Academy.
Yeah, that's not a good one.
No. So if you're familiar at all with Black Widow, this is where she learned how to be an assassin. Think brainwashing to the max just to become killing machines. like espionage killing machines. And that's what and that's only women. That's what they're only trained to do.
Yeah.
So.
It's like, I think they take a little sort of license, or it's an homage from like the story La Femme Nikita, which, you know, has those sort of stories in like the, Cold War atmosphere of like what the best assassin or like the best sort of Manchurian candidate wouldn't be one you trained from when 19. It would be like one that you stole and then like chained up as an orphan. So by the time, so that's all. Yeah. It's a great way to think about the Black Widow, because people forget like she's not just some military badass. She is a sort of person who's like, since the time she was 4, like right off the nipple. I don't know when you start speeding. She's like, she's a terrifying murderer, who then kind of becomes good after that. So yeah, it's cool.
Sorry, that explanation.
But that what's really cool about that too is that the Red Room is a way to it's almost this retrospective school. So we've seen more of it recently,
right?
But it was more like we saw that in flashbacks. So honestly, a whole story about that. Go ahead, sorry.
I think a lot of people forget too that people that come from the Red Room, they're brainwashed and hardwired to be killing machines. Mm-hmm. So when Black Widow started out, that's what she was. Like, to reverse that, it took tremendous like time and rebrainwashing. Mm-hmm. I don't know the opposite of brainwashing. Deprogramming.
I really like how they did that in the MCU. How they just mentioned the Red Room Academy, and I'm sure her movie will definitely address it even more. So I'm actually excited to see one of the academies aside from Xavier's school on the big screen.
That's true. That's true.
It's cool because like she had a kind of linear trajectory where she Red Room training, becomes a Soviet spy, becomes like a triple agent, defects to the United States, and then because we're so good, there's some exaggeration. Because she's like, oh my God, freedom! I'll be a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent and then an Avenger. So it's kind
of I do want to. So, did you guys know that Victor Von Doom had his own school for gifted youths?
I would totally go there.
I wish I knew that. Oh, they're up to no good, Kayla. They're up to no good.
But listen, this is the best part. Like, one, I want to know what the mascot is. Like, if it's just Doom himself, but it's somebody in like a big mascot uniform that looks like Doom. But the institute is called Doom Institute. I'm sold. Like,
that's what I'm saying. I would
go. they have like DeVry commercials online and stuff like that. At Doom Institute, learn how to crush your enemies.
He's the leader of an entire country. To think of the connections you could get from being an alumni.
Oh yeah, and I think all the teachers would just be Doombots. So everybody would have the same personality.
Love it.
If you don't know that about Doombots are like smart enough to fool you into thinking it's Doom. At least like first glance.
Doom is a very smart person.
Mm-hmm. Well, so it's like the way he pretty much chooses his students. So the strongest. Well, I don't know if you'll qualify.
Oh no!
Yeah, so only the strongest and most resilient from Battle World can actually go there to prove to God Emperor Doom, that's what they call him, that they're worthy. So pretty much I think it's ages, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 14 to 19. That's the window that you have to go there to prove yourself.
Damn it.
And get this, the final exam is you proving how good you are, and then you have to swear your allegiance to Doom. So it's like, he just builds an army out of just giving a certification.
From that description too, it sounds like that was from the Secret Wars sort of thing. Like the Secret Wars.
Yeah, with Battle World being mentioned.
Yeah, and Doom had the power of like what do you call it? The Beyonders, and then all of his cops were Thors, which was kind of cool.
It was actually in the Runaways series also, the Doom Institute.
Nice.
So
yeah.
It's like, I'm just only mentioning that because it doesn't just function like within that time of.
Yeah, I mean it's a good thing, and it's also because. Like there are villain schools too. We don't hear as much about this, but like the Taskmaster masker, which isn't a word or a person.
He does wear a mask, though.
He does.
He does.
I wasn't going to correct you.
He can do flips, but he can't speak the language. So, the Taskmaster has a school. That's what he's sort of known for. It's a school to train like low level like henchmen and grunts.
Yeah, that's where all the henchmen come from.
I would love to write that story. By the way, I think there would be a great story in that. It's people like coming through that school.
I think it could be the most hilarious book.
It'd be great. The spotlight that I chose was Avengers Academy. Now,
no.
Yes, totally. Did you pick that one too? No. Something really cool about that for me is that like a lot of times we do these and I have to pick something. Not that I just like I don't know what it's going to be. In this case, I've loved this series for a long time, and there's been a whole series of them, like similar ones in Marvel. So I kind of just already was familiar. I knew what I wanted to do. Okay. So Avengers Academy came out in 2000, I think 10, went out for 39 issues to November 2012. It was done by this guy, Christoph Gage, who was like, actually, he's one of those like second tier writers. He's fantastic, but you sort of see him every once in a while. And I always recommend him. I think he's just got really solid superhero fundamentals. So here's good. Yes. So here's the really cool thing about the premise of the story, because I think this strength is the premise, is that the early issues, and okay, I have to say, I know we have our spoiler warning. This is a second spoiler. Okay. And the reason I say that is that you can't talk about this series without talking about this, but it is a reveal. So anyway, the idea is that you initially think this young group of heroes that are all coming together to be trained by the Avengers they're like the new crop of heroes. But it turns out they did a kind of like algorithm and looked at their psychological profiles. And these are the heroes, the young heroes or metahumans that are most likely, because they're damaged, yes, to be evil. And they sort of, and the history of this is that before, like Norman Osborn was for a time sort of in charge of basically the world government. He had an organization, Shield, Hammer. Yeah. And so he had this, it's like he collected all of them, going to be like his new evil army. He's defeated after Siege, whatever. Point is that then the Avengers are left with this like, oh, we got some fucked up teens.
It's not a bad approach, actually.
I love it. I think it's super smart. And so like the idea is that Hank Pym heads up the program of Avengers Academy. Yeah. Is correct, Taylor. And so it's okay. So they and not just Hank Pym, he's the head of this, but all of the instructors are.
Let me guess, like, Reed Richards.
No, but you're close. I mean, you're on the right track because it's Justice, Quicksilver, Tigra, Hawkeye. It's all of or not all of them, but a lot of Avengers who have had problems with the law, like fallen down a dark path.
They toe the line.
Or they had that, like they did before and came out.
Or they always keep like one foot over there, like I could just go.
So it's like putting an ex-convict into schools, going like, "Hey kids, don't do drugs. You could end up like me."
Yeah.
They're not choosing the most responsible people. Like Steve Rogers has no part in this because he's a perfect person. They have to get people that can communicate to the kids on their level. I like this.
Kind of, and they have different approaches. Like Captain America doesn't. It kind of like he comes in a couple times, and there's like definitely some friction. He's like, I understand where you kids are from, and he's
shut up, Grandpa,
or whatever. Yeah, exactly. No, I mean that's great. There's a lot of resistance. So just real quick, it's super smartly focused too. I really like this because what they do is they have them kind of in, at first it's like the Avengers Infinity Mansion that Hank Pym made. Then they go to the West Coast Avengers campus. But what's super, super cool about it is that like they end up swimming in Avengers soup, so to speak. But they're
phrase that another way, please.
There's chunks of beef and celery and villains. No, but so they swim in that world, right? But they're sort of saved. It's like a separate piece. Like they're saved from the kind of like really serious, hectic nature of like the main Avengers story. So that they still like you get these new characters, but they have experiences like other like, like villains or like Magneto and the X-Men like have to deal with them in an organic sort of story purpose or whatever. It's like super cool. So they kind of get to live in that world without like basically having to fucking fight Graviton for the fate of the Earth or something like that. The themes of the book are really cool because you don't know, they're new characters, all of them. And so you don't know where they're going to end up. And so most of the themes are kind of like about like, one, the choices that you make and like, what's the path that leads you down the dark side versus like the light side. And then also kind of similar to that, like how much is your destiny just pre-written based on where you come from? Like, so how much of you, because they have fucked up origins, and you really, because you don't know where these characters are going to go, they're not perennials that have to be good. Like for all we know, the whole series could just end them being a bunch of supervillains, and that tension is always there. It's super cool, super smart. And then I guess the kind of last thing I'll say here, and then we can move on, is that another cool thing was they had no major characters, right? Mm-hmm. They had the teachers, and we have a sense of them, and like they're also real bad at being teachers, it turns out, in a lot of ways. But like, because none of the characters are like more important than any other ones, they all get a lot of attention, and they're all super developed. Being like, a lot of times in a team book, you'll have like the two main characters are like the three big ones, and then you have some sort of like superficial substitutes, like, oh, that's the fat one that like, eats butter beans or whatever it is. In this case, they're all like super well developed. So it was a really well executed version of the superhero school thing. So that is Avengers Academy.
I like it. But also just listening to that ending there, I'm very concerned that none of these teachers in any of these academies really have teaching certifications, and they're just coming in off the street thinking they are equipped to deal with children. And that's kind of alarming. As a person who has her teaching certification, I'm like, they shouldn't be anywhere near these kids.
Do you know how hard Kayla had to work for that?
I mean, we don't know that those teachers aren't made to like, well, you gotta take, 2 years of that. But you're absolutely right. And actually, it's not like they address that explicitly in Avengers Academy, but it's super cool that like they're over their head a lot. The teachers make really bad decisions. Or not exclusively, but like they definitely struggle themselves trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's my spotlight.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to start mine with a hypothetical question. Have you ever wondered what it was like to be a regular citizen in Gotham with all the shit that goes on there? Yeah?
No.
Well, have you ever wondered what it would be like to be a regular teacher teenager in Gotham? And then on top of that, you're a regular teenager with the supervillain mom that got put away into Arkham Asylum by Batman in Gotham. I mean, that's Gotham Academy, and that's the main character. So yeah, I chose Gotham Academy. Surprise, surprise. I bet you're just as shocked that Jared chose Avengers Academy, and you'll be super surprised by Noah's choice.
Consistency.
Yeah,
Noah Academy.
We're staying true to who we are. What can we say?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Gotham Academy has been mentioned in several different types of media. And it was only until fairly recently in comic history that it actually got its own book. So I'll get there. But the Gotham Academy actually has strong ties to the Cobblepot family. In terms
all that money.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So Gotham Academy is a place, whether or not wherever you are, it's currently open or it's a ruin. It's a place where the Gotham elite got their education. So it's not like a superhero academy. It's just a regular, like, elite private school where really rich people go. Yeah.
So that means
and Cobblepot Penguin.
I know, my bad.
But quick mythos that's important to the book and just the universe in general. In 1863, Millie Jane Cobblepot, Penguin connection there, was secretly moved from Arkham Asylum to what would be the girls' dorm in Gotham Academy later on. She was imprisoned there by her family to silence her and keep their dirty dealings a secret, because the Cobblepots have a long history of being great stand-up citizens.
Especially to their children.
Exactly. She discovered secret tunnels beneath the school, and then she would remain in the dormitory until she faked her death. In other universes, like, it appears in the TV show Gotham, but it's not mentioned. In Young Justice, that's where Dick, Babs, and Artemis go to school, but again, it's not really a focus. It's just like, oh, of course, they're part of like the elite people in Gotham.
Did you say you said Dick, Babs, and Artemis, right?
Yeah.
I heard that as one name.
Dick Bab Artemis.
Dick Babson Artemis.
That's like if Kayla was like a fictional person within that universe. And she was like, this is my child.
You're not wrong. But yeah, so and sometimes it's like in certain video games that feature Batman or the animated series, sometimes it's just like a ruin where Gotham Academy used to be a school and now it's just the hideout for Penguin because it belonged to his family, blah, blah, blah. And it's all boarded up and scary looking. But in the book that came out in December 2014, again, very recent in comic book history, it focuses on this main character named Olive Silverlock. Her mother is a villain called Calamity who was locked up by Batman, and she's kind of bitter about that. The Gotham Academy was fair. It came out during the New 52, which is my personal kind of one of my favorite time periods in like basically Batman lore. Writers were
Scott Snyder days, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And then, Becky Kloonman and Brendan Fletcher were the writers, and Carl Kerschel was the artist. One of the reason I brought up Millie is one of the first things that happens is people start seeing Millie Cobblepot's ghost in the dorms, and they're like, "Oh God, we got to figure it out." And all of the main characters are part of the detective club in Gotham Academy because, of course, they are.
The Babysitters Club situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the main character, her name is Olive Silverlock. She's a second-year student at Gotham Academy and the main protagonist. Like I said, her mom is a supervillain called Calamity, which is a really cool supervillain name. I wish that was my supervillain name.
Agreed.
Yeah.
She resents Batman for putting her mom in Arkham Asylum. She returned to Gotham Academy after that event with some heavy depression, post-breakup with her boyfriend who still goes to that school. And her best friend is the younger sister of said boyfriend. So she's dealing with a lot of typical teenage issues. But she also has pyrokinesis, which she got from her mom. So she's also struggling with her power. The main interesting thing is they don't segregate superpowered people from regular students in this universe. So they just have to go to class together and hope she doesn't set them on fire in a fit of rage or depressing angst. But yeah, other main characters would be Mia Maps. It's, like I said, her ex-boyfriend's little sister, Olive's best friend, and an upperclassman. She's kind of like the upbeat one that contrasts Olive's depression and angst.
Everybody that's depressive should come with one of those, by the way.
Yeah, right. They need to pair them together. Olive, by the way, her character design has white hair, red eyes, and I'm just like, this is so... It's towing the line of Mary Sue, but I promise the book is really good.
So she's an albino?
Yeah, basically. And she has fire powers, and she's angsty and a teenager, so, you know.
That's just really, good character design.
Really relates to the kids.
Welcome to Mary Sue Academy.
Yeah.
Other main character.
It's just Captain Marvel in the Century.
Sorry. Her on-again, off-again friend, kind of rival, is Pommeline French. She's an occultist, and she is kind of the one that starts seeing the ghost sightings. She's also part of the detective club. Like I said, all the main characters are part of the detective club at Gotham Academy. There's this character called Colton Rivera, who he's not as big as the other characters, but I thought he was worth mentioning because it's heavily implied that he has a crush on Kyle, who was Olive's ex-boyfriend. So there's a little bit of...
ooh, drama.
Right. Some representation there, too, which is cool.
Some Edward, Jacob, and Bella drama going on right there.
The worst kind of drama.
And then Kyle himself, who was Olive's ex-boyfriend, Map's older brother, and he's kind of written as not the stereotypical jock, angsty, like distant badass. He's actually just a really concerned person, which is probably why everyone in this universe is in love with him.
Including me.
Yeah. So, like I said, the first volume, or a couple of issues, were in New 52, and then it got canceled, as they do, when it got really good critical reviews, but people weren't buying it because there was mainly new characters. Like Damian Wayne would show up and go to school there, but he was only, he wasn't the main focus. So people were like, these aren't established characters. I'm not going to buy this. And then they brought it back.
That can be difficult, for sure.
Yeah, especially, it's hard to launch new characters. I know we've talked about that on the show before.
Mm-hmm.
But like Killer Croc was the bad guy in a couple of the volumes, so they try to bring in Gotham stuff, of course. And then they released a couple of brand new issues in Rebirth called Second Semester, which was kind of cool. Huh. But again, it received high praise and it didn't sell enough, so it also got canceled. So if you want to catch up with Gotham Academy, which again it's really well written and the art is really cute and cool, there's 30 issues plus an annual, so it's not that hard to catch up.
Oh, and that's not that bad.
The end of my spotlight, sadly, because there's not more.
All right, so my spotlight is going to be on Strange Academy. So this one is if you're not...
Oh no, that's brand new.
Exactly. If you're not too familiar with it, it's because it's literally brand new. There's only been one issue. There would have been more issues, but COVID-19 happened and everything got pushed. By the time this episode comes out, it will actually be there'll be a second issue out. So it's actually written by Scotty Young. Artist is Ramos. So the coolest thing about this is it's almost like Hogwarts, but in superhero comic book form. Mm-hmm. So it's essentially a school for the next generation magicians and sorcerers, sorceresses in Marvel. The school's in New Orleans, which, I mean, come on. It has a deep history with magic and dark arts.
I love New Orleans. That's a good choice.
Exactly. And it's in the French Quarter. Yeah. And it's actually hidden too. I think it's just like a grass wall, and you open it, but you can only get into it if you're magical in nature, or if you have, I guess, the code.
That's standard music. Standard magic school.
The coolest thing about this school, aside from the students, and I'll get to the students, is the faculty. So, of course, you have Dr. Strange. It's named after him. Of course, he'd be there. You have Dr. Voodoo / Brother Voodoo, depending on how you know him. You have Velma Stanton, which I did talk about her in a prior episode. She's Dr. Strange's new apprentice, essentially. Magic, the Ancient One, the Mindful One, a lot of ones in this school. Scarlet Witch, hopefully she's not teaching psychology. Hellstrom, Nico from Runaways, and Shaman. So just right there, you have so many different types of magic, which makes me super excited for this book. But another cool thing that I really love, all these characters are new. So kind of like what Jared's, most of the characters were new. I like the school books or academy books for this reason, because it gives writers, or even you as a reader, something very new to read, because all the characters are new. So they really spend a lot of time on each one, and you kind of figure out the mystery of them and see where they're going to go or what their intentions are throughout the whole story. But also the cool thing is they pull characters or different types of characters from cool places in Marvel. So you got Earth, Weird World, Asgard, the Dark Dimension, etc. So get people from all over. Yeah, so how I'll break down this spotlight is I'm just going to tell you all the new students and kind of what they're about so far, because like I said, there's one issue and I want people to get excited and read it, so that way more keep coming out.
What if the second volume or the second issue comes out and you hate it and you have to retract this whole episode because you were like really glorifying it, and then you were like, oh, that was my fault because there was only one issue out?
Well, okay.
No, it's like, we did not know it was going to be about flat Earth. Okay, we didn't know.
Yeah, okay, I will say I love the first issue. If the second issue is terrible and you pick it up because of my recommendation, I'm so sorry, but it's not my fault. So the main character so far that we see in the series that it follows the most is Emily Bright. She has massive magical power since she was born. She's been able to hold death at bay, which was really cool that they showed, even at a very young age. But with such great power comes great target on your back. So that's kind of where her story leads, and she gets to Strange Academy for protection and also to understand her magical abilities that seem to be very chaotic. Then you have Shaylee Moonpetal. So this character is amazing, but all you have to do is think of like all the bright colors you can think of. So like hot pink and neon orange and stuff like that. If it was a person, like that's who she is. She's just super bubbly and like in your face, loves to make new friends. She's pretty cool.
I'm not surprised that that's your favorite character, by the way.
It's not my favorite character.
That would be my favorite character.
Yes, it would. Yes.
She's from Otherworld. And the cool thing about her is that she's a rare human/fairy hybrid. So there's a whole backstory with her and like the sacrifices her family has to make. So it's really cool. She has a more to her than just bubbly personality. And then one of the most absurd characters that are in this is Doyle Dormammu, which is not an easy name to say.
Doyle.
Yeah, he's the illegitimate son of Doctor Strange's archenemy, the dreaded Dormammu. So he looks just like him, but he wears like a cardigan and skinny jeans. So flaming head with cardigan and skinny jeans. Pretty cool. We'll find out if he's friend or foe. Yeah. And then you have, so like Jared mentioned, there's these twins from Asgard, Eric and Alvi. I think that's how you say their name. It's Norse, so who knows? But they're interesting because they're so far removed from Thor, Sif, and the Warriors 3. So you don't really get the understanding. So if you think about it, like, just because they live there doesn't mean that they're tight knit with them. They're just like, yeah, we know about those people, but I mean, we don't know them.
That's like their president.
Right.
It'd be like, I mean, 10 years ago, so it wouldn't suck or whatever, or 8 years ago. If you met people from Mars and you're like, do you know Obama? Like,
yeah.
I've heard of him.
But my favorite character is Gooslag. And Gooslag is a frost giant from Jotunheim. The reason, not only do I like this character because it's a literal giant frost giant, but Loki has a huge hand in bringing Gooslag to the Academy, which makes you think too, why Gooslag? Like, you would think that Loki would have some type of like.
No, never.
Is it Loki just being Loki?
Like, I think Loki wouldn't bother with it. He'd,
right.
like, outsource that to like the mortals.
Right. And then you have Zoe Laveau. So in Marvel, Marie Laveau is a voodoo priestess who trained Dr. Voodoo and also taught Doctor Strange. Mm-hmm. Zoe seems to be one of her great-great-granddaughters. So we'll see if she also tries to kill Doctor Strange, just like her great-great-great-grandmother. We'll see.
You're gonna try to kill him.
Yeah, somebody is. Then we have Calvin Morse. So he's lived a pretty messed up life, but he found a enchanted leather jacket, and that's how he got into Strange Academy. I'm not going to tell you what it does because it's crazy, and you should figure that out on your own. And
a smart trope, because finding a magical object happens in fiction and fantasy all the time. So it's right. One of them just like I found this magic, blah blah blah, or whatever.
And then Desi. So also another one of my favorite characters. Mm-hmm. Her name is actually Despair, but she prefers to go by Desi.
I would too.
Yikes.
She's straight up ripped off from The Breakfast Club, and I love it.
Yeah, she looks exactly like the loner from The Breakfast Club, but with horns and bright red.
Yeah.
So she's a demon from Limbo who has the gift or burden, because that's how she sees it, to see people how they truly are. So she knows all of her fellow students' secrets. Mm-hmm. And then the weirdest one. So you have Toth. He's a silent, half crystal warrior, half man thing from Weird World. God, there's so many weird words in this Strange Academy. And that's all I'll say on him. He literally looks like man thing mixed with like a blue crystal thing.
Yeah, we just don't really know. I mean, it's like to be revealed.
One issue, people. Mm-hmm. And that's Strange Academy. All right, special thanks. So we got a new Patreon member. Whee! Yay! Thank you. Mm-hmm. So this one's odd because I have no idea who they are. Usually I have their name, at least one name, and it's just N. So I guess they want to stay anonymous, which is super cool and also super creepy.
I think isn't N just short Nebulon? I think probably.
It could be.
Like how Teddy and Theodore and Nebulon, of course. Okay.
Who's Teddy and Theodore?
Teddy is short for Theodore.
Oh. I got it. All right. So as always, we give people that donate bunch of other stuff, but on air, we like to give them a superhero name, superpower, and then anything else we want to say about their super being. So what do you guys got?
Do we know anything else about N at all?
No, N is literally just N. And they said that they were like, because we usually ask for the address depending on what tier you are, so we can send you stuff. No address either. I don't know who this person is. Thank you, though.
Do you guys have anything? Because I do.
Go ahead.
You're the best at this. I don't know why you even bothered asking us.
So I think the idea is like N is probably short for something. So I'm thinking it's a shrinking power kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But there's a catch. Can only shrink anything that begins with the letter N. It's magic. This person's name in the comics is like Nathan. So Nathan can fine. But also other stuff with N, but like if there's no N, so if they're like we got to shrink this waterfall. And they would go, well, if we were at Niagara Falls, we could do that. But we're at the waterfall at Lake Titicaca or whatever it is. So yeah, I think that's the power. I don't know what's the name.
Non-big.
Little N maybe, or lowercase N. Lowercase is not bad.
Yeah,
I like lowercase. That's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not bad, right?
Yeah, there you go. Lowercase is good. Yeah. So thank you, N, for donating. As always, if you want us to humiliate you on the podcast by attempting to try to give you a cool name and power, you can donate on Patreon as well.
Yeah.
All right. So time for comic book recommendations.
So sorry, I don't know. Takes two. My recommendation is kind of obvious. It's Avengers Academy, the complete collection, Volume 1. I had to look that up. I don't know why, but yeah, that's it. It's basically just the beginning of the story. I think it's infectious enough. You'll read this. You want to finish it because it's not that long. Super good. Check it out.
Along the same vein, mine is called Gotham Academy. Welcome to Gotham Academy, Volume 1. It came out in 2014. Yeah, and it's just about they're basically hunting down the ghost of the Cobbleplots. And like Jared said, the whole series isn't very long. So if you pick this up, you might as well buy the second volume too.
Read all of the comics.
All right. And mine, obviously no surprise, is Strange Academy. It's an ongoing, it's current, not like these people.
You're like, buy the first issue because it's the only thing that's out.
Hey, mine is budget friendly. It's $3.99.
This one's going to be big anyway, so you'll run into it.
Yeah. So it's by Scotty Young, illustrated by Herbertos Ramos. So pick that up wherever your comics are.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at The Phantom Zone Pod for more podcast updates.